la for, hit for none. All the time, la for, hit for none, for Islam stand for peace.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to yet another edition of Inspirational Africans. This is your program where we have grand Africans, inspirational Africans, share their grand stories for grand inspiration. Before we move into the program, let's have a look at the introductory video of our amazing guest.
Our honorable guest today on Inspirational Africans is Emmanuel Daniel Joof, a commissioner and chairperson of the Gambia's first National Human Rights Commission, a veteran lawyer and former magistrate, and a human rights expert with national and international experience. Commissioner Joof also headed the African Society of International and Comparative Law and led the human rights training and education program in the remote parts of the Gambia. In both conflict and post-conflict countries, Commissioner Joof dedicated more than a decade of international service supporting the establishment of rule of law and justice in South Sudan by building rule of law institutions such as judiciary, Ministry of Justice, and prison services. Commissioner Joof served with the United Nations High Commission for Refugees in his capacity as Protection, Repatriation, and Refugee Status Determination Officer in refugee camps in the Sudan. He also served with the United Nations Development Programme as Access to Justice Program Manager between 2005 and 2012 and contributed to the transition of South Sudan into an independent country by strengthening and building rule of law institutions such as the judiciary, Ministry of Justice, police, and prison services, and with the International Development Law Organization as Access to Justice Advisor and Legal Training Advisor, and contributed in building capacities of Ministry of Justice and civil society organizations. Commissioner Joof engaged extensively with civil society organizations and worked for two non-governmental organizations, namely the African Society of International and Comparative Law as legal officer and head of the Banjul branch, and for the African Center for Democracy and Human Rights Studies as program officer. Mr. Joof holds a master's degree from the University of Nottingham, United Kingdom, in international law with a major in human rights law.
Right. To start off with this question, you have an impressive career as far as law is concerned. Would you want to share with us what must have inspired you to take up the law career?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Bojang. I would say that it's, when you're growing up as a child, you see role models. I remember even going to the High Court in Banjul a long time ago as a young boy, watching proceedings in court. But I think as I grew up, I think the issues surrounding justice really became one of the issues that made me want to study law. Saying that, to support the downtrodden. It was an idea as a young. I think these seeds were sown at a very tender age, saying that, fighting for the cause of justice. I remember especially issues as apartheid in South Africa was one of those things that really made my, although I was very young, my blood boil. And I remember even as a student in the UK, I was regularly going to demonstrations when either Desmond Tutu, that time was in town in the UK, and of course even at university I joined the Caribbean African movement, and these were the causes. I think I have always leaned towards that that side, that is justice, really. That was, I think, one of the main reasons why I not only studied law, but I went to human rights, because even after finishing my LLB, my law degree, I went and studied international human rights law, just to show you that this has always been my passion. And if you look at the work that I've done in my career, it has always been towards that area of human rights.
Right. Justice is what actually inspired you to make sure people
yes
that justice,
that people attain justice,
yes.
fairness. You can call it a dream, you can call it utopian dream, but it has been one of the, of course you may get jaded with life as you grow,
sure.
but this was the reason why I felt I needed to not only study law, but also, you know, study international human rights law and be a practitioner of human rights law.
And that's what you're doing. We've
Yes.
seen your work
Yes.
as far as the National Human Rights Commission is concerned.
Yeah.
Now, coming back to the Gambia in the mid-1990s, you started your career as a law lecturer at the Gambia Technical Training Institute, GTTI.
Yeah.
Can you describe that experience?
Yes. When I got back, there was a course that was introduced in the country. It was the Institute for Legal Executive. It was actually an external exam from London, and a lot of Gambians, you know, started doing that course, and I was co-opted at GTTI to lecture. So that was my first job in the Gambia. So I lectured at the GTTI then, because we didn't have the university, or I think they were trying to build a university, and when they built it, it took time for it to have the Faculty of Law. So that was the only accredited course that was run in the country. So I started lecturing law at the GTTI. It was, as I said, the Institute for Legal Executive in London. And actually, interestingly, a lot of people today who went on to study law as a degree, even the Pahari Jame, who became later the Solicitor General, was one of those who did this course. The Kejo Tourés, many. One of them is now even a professor, Bojang. He was in the army, he's now a professor, I think, in Scotland. He was also in my class, you know, so yes, I was the pioneer of lecturing law, and a lot of people from then on took it over and went and did a degree, and of course later the University of the Gambia came and they did law. But that was one of the things, but I went out and again did my bar finals practical course and came back, and I was a magistrate. So I was a magistrate from 1997 to 1999, 2000, stationed at first in Kanifing and later in Jara, LRR. I was in the region and the North Bank. So I was also a magistrate for a period. And later on, I worked for a regional NGO. It's called the African Society of International and Comparative Law. It was a regional NGO with offices in London, in Accra, Gambia, and one or two other African countries. So I was there, the legal officer and head of the Banjul branch. And there I did a lot of pro bono cases, awareness raising, human rights education. We started it. And also the first legal aid clinic where Gambians could just go and just, if they have a legal problem, every Saturday at KMC. That's where we started. I worked with a lot of young lawyers then, the Almami Tals, the Idrissa Sissohos, and then also we collaborated with ActionAid then to open legal aid centers run by paralegals that were trained. So this was my early stages in the Gambia, and of course later I went into activism by a founding member of the Coalition of Human Rights Defenders. And of course, if you hear the story about April 10 and 11, we were the group of young lawyers who actually represented students just after the April 10 and 11 aftermath. So in the Gambia, this is what I did before moving out to pursue my career outside. I also had a stint at the African Center for Democracy and Human Rights Studies. And then later I went and I worked for the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugee. I worked in refugee camps near the border with Eritrea and Ethiopia and Sudan. And then later came back and went worked for UNDP as a rule of law officer. worked in South Sudan mainly. We had a short stint in Kenya, but it was the South Sudan office. And I've worked there for decades in that region. So this has been my career before re-entering again in 2018.
You know, it's impressive, honestly. And those were really, really nation-building efforts that are commendable, highly commendable. And any specific experience as far as the GTTI is concerned, as in, you know, did probably some difficulties or some whatever as far as the GTTI experience is concerned?
No, the GTTI experience was good because it was really a stepping stone for creating a law program in the country. And it gave exposure, as I told you. I even told you those students who started the course today.
And
you have Professor, served in many years. But I was really the pioneer when it started, the ILEX course. Later they also did, they call it the diploma in law. But this was the precursor of all those things. So I would say really that the GTT course was the catapult, you know. So so yes, it was the springboard. Yes.
Right. You also served in one of the highly kind of controversial commissions in the Gambia, and which is the Faraba Bantang Commission, and you are the chairman. Can you tell us more about it?
Yes. Well, I wouldn't say it was a controversial commission. I don't know why you dubbed it a controversial commission, but yes, this was the early days of the Adama Barrow administration, the coalition government, when, in fact, I had just come back to the country from South Sudan. They were not even sure whether I had come to stay or I was going back. So it was a problem that happened in Faraba Banta when a mining company, Jula K, run by Jula K Quarry, they were issued license. And the villagers were not happy because they felt that the license was not properly issued and that they were not also properly consulted, and that the mining will have adverse effect on their farmlands. So they demonstrated. Unfortunately, it led to the PIU, who were stationed, fired shots, and 3 died. 3 of the villagers died, and it led to a massive riots of burning of the trucks that were there, destruction of property, injured. The PIU also shot other officers. The PIU were also actually stoned, and a lot of them were injured. So this, and the government quickly announced that they will set up a commission of inquiry to look into the causes and to also find out who shot who, why, and also to prosecute those who, if there were illegal shooting, those who shot the villagers, but also those who created, who caused arson, and to look at the deep-rooted causes of that problem so that it will not happen again. So this was basically the mandate. So I was made the chairperson of the commission, and then I was assisted by other commissioners, by other 1, 2, 3, yes, I think 4 other commissioners. So we were 5. And we were given a mandate of 2 months to look into the issues and to report back to the government. And that we did within time. A lot of people were saying this is just another commission. You know, Gambia, we set up commission. But
that's why I said controversial.
Yes, we are the commissions that reported on time with recommendations, and the government came up with a white paper to implement our findings. And I hope that they will still look at the Faraba Banta Commission of Inquiry, because some of the recommendations that we gave was to do with land matters. And if you look at, I just, sometime last year, somebody went and actually even quoted a whole portion of our recommendation, saying that if the government implemented this portion, we will not have. So the report is there, the government has it, and I think because, as you know, land is a ticking time bomb in this country, honestly. Especially if you look at this area of Combo South, and you know how land has become the commercial value of land now in these areas, and issues of mining, you know, affecting gardens, rice fields. So it is the Farababanda Commission of report I think is still very, very relevant. And I really hope that the government, and in our current report now, we keep on highlighting and telling the government to make sure that those recommendations, especially when you have the NEA and the Geological Department, which are arms of the government that are supposed to supervise and make sure that mining is done properly. We still have the fish meal factories, the pollution and all these things. So, so it was not a controversial commission. It was a very good commission. And I hope the government revisit. They did make a white paper. They implemented some of the provisions, but some of the other recommendations were medium and long term. And we hope that they will look at it.
Right. Since the National Human Rights Commission came into existence, you are the head. And can you tell us some of the accomplishments and how impactful has been the commission as far as communities and victims are concerned?
Yes. So again, down the line, you had the National Human Rights Commission. A lot of people shouted, yet another commission. But our commission, you see, is different from the other commission. That is why we were even told by the former speaker, Mariam Dentin, that we should change the name to the National Human Rights Council to show the permanent nature. Because ours is not only is it independent, but it is also a permanent. All the other commissions that we talk about have been ad hoc. They come for a period, do their report, and they move. Ours was created as part of the transitional justice package of the government. When the government came into power in 2017, they came up with a program. And one of the programs was the TRRC, the Truth, Reconciliation, and Reparation Commission, but also that to make sure that the 22 years of human rights violation that took place in this country does not occur again. They decided to set up a permanent, independent Human Rights Commission. And this is how we came into force. So the act was passed in 2017, and the commissioners were appointed on the 14th of February 2019 with a very broad mandate to promote and protect human rights. We investigate issues relating to human rights, all kinds of human rights, whether it's civil, political, economic, social, cultural rights. We also receive complaints from people who claim that their rights have been violated, or others who tell us that somebody's rights have been violated. So you don't have to be the direct victim. We also monitor human rights violation. We monitor all detention facilities, prisons. That's why you see us all the time in the papers going all, because this is our mandate. It's not that we are just busybodies or nosy. We have been given the strong mandate to promote and protect human rights, raise awareness so that people can understand, advise the government, because the government has an obligation to respect, protect, and fulfill. But also the government has regional and international obligation, because the government ratify treaties and conventions. So if you ratify treaties and convention, you must make sure that you honor your obligation. So these are the many, many things that this institution does. And we keep on doing. We also have quasi-judicial powers. In other words, we can sit as a tribunal to hear cases. And we have done that before. And make recommendations. And we have done that. And even order compensation to be paid to victims. And we have done that. So it is a broad mandate. It's an oversight institution. It's advisory, but also to make sure that institutions are doing whatever they do is in compliance with human rights principles. So, so this is the nature of this institution. And you have seen in 2019 when we were sworn in from 5 commissioners, today I tell you we have a staff of 51. 51 wow. From 5. Not only that, we have regional offices now. We have a regional office in Parafenye covering the North Bank and Lower River region. We have an office in Basse covering URR and CRR. And each office is manned by an investigator, an administrator, and a legal officer. And they replicate the work that we do here. Yeah. So this
more or less bringing access to the people.
Yes, because when we were sworn in, I remember what the head of state told us. He said that human rights is not only for the Greater Banjul area. And yes, and we proved it. We said, okay, we are going to make sure that we will go out there and everybody will feel our presence and feel that we are there, an institution that is set up to promote and protect human rights. And that's what we have been doing since our establishment.
That's marvelous. So I have had you name URR, yes, that's Basse, North Bank covering LRR. What about the Fonyi,
So that area is covered by us here.
Okay.
Yes, we have a mobile team that covers this area. But as we progress, you know, it's just an institution that has been set up for 5 years.
Yeah, sure.
You'll be very surprised. But as we progress, in the long run, and I guess this is part of the vision, that we will have an office in every region. So that is it. But of course, this is what you do incrementally. You do it gradually. So this is where we are. But yes, for example, the Western Division and Kanifing and Banjul is covered by here. We have a mobile team.
You have a hotline?
We have a hotline. We have a hotline, and the complaints, and we have an open door policy. Not only that, anybody can just walk in and make a complaint. And for those who are internet savvy and have access, there's an online complaint form. So you can just tell us what is happening. And there we are. We receive complaints, or just tell us X, Y, and Z is happening. And we're there because we have a separate team of investigation. We have 5 directorates. We have the directorates of communication, for example. We have of course, finance is there, human resource. But we have 2 key directorates, the Directorate of Legal and Investigation, and also Program. So legal and investigation is the main team that does this investigation. Yes, and it's manned by dynamic young staff, lawyers and former police officers, very qualified. Sure. So you know, they know how to investigate.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What is your vision for the commission in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years?
Yes.
And where do you intend to take this commission?
Yeah. So as I've just told you, our mandate is a broad mandate to promote and protect human rights, and in doing so, investigate, we receive complaints, we monitor, we serve as an advisory body to the government. If you've been following our activities, you will find out that even during the election period, we played an important part.
Is it mandatory for government to listen to you?
Oh yes,
Or
that's why we were created.
Yeah, but that may be political. But if you look at it, there are many recommendations that the government didn't kind of implement. They only pick and choose and implement some.
Yeah. Okay, for the nature of like the Paraba Banta, that's how governments operate. Then they come up with a white paper. In our case, where we are in permanent institution, actually, our reports is not even submitted. It's submitted to the government later. It is submitted to the National Assembly. It is the National Assembly that has a supervisory role on us. So in the event that the government does not, we go back to the National Assembly. And we have been called, and the particular government institution has been called to ask, and they've been asked by the National. See, we all have to do our work. Yeah. They have been asked, why have you not implemented X, Y, and Z? In other areas, for example, if we make a recommendation to compensate, so far, those ones that we have made, the government has respected, and they have paid. We've made, the police have paid, the drug law enforcement have paid, but it's an important point. With all institutions that are set up, the government has to have the political will. Otherwise, you are telling us that then the government is breaking its own laws. So if you set up, you can say the same thing about even the judiciary, because if they make a pronouncement, then it goes to the sheriff division and the police is told to. So that is not only about us as an institution. It's about the government being held accountable and responsible. And that is why it's important that you know what recommendations are there, that the National Assembly calls the government to tell them to fulfill X, Y, and Z. But yes, implementation will always be a problem. Sometimes the government may drag its feet. But it is important. And the way we have been structured is such a way that we don't even report to a line ministry. We go straight to the National Assembly and tell them these are the recommendations. And the National Assembly calls the offending institution and asks them, why? Why have you not done X, Y, and Z? So I think it's a good arrangement. It is a good arrangement. It's not solving all our problems, but it is important, you see, and that is why if you look at the TRRC, one of the recommendations was that the implementation of all those recommendations should be monitored by by us, because we are the institution that has been set up as the watchdog. And it's important to have a watchdog that is independent and be reminding the government, this is your obligation. When it comes to women's rights, are you doing what you're supposed to do? When it comes to people with disability, that's why you see us having conference, calling the government and said, you were supposed to do X, Y, and Z. You are not doing it on Y. And no government wants to be seen as if they are flouting the law. Let me tell you, governments are political. Even if they are not doing it, they'll try and give you an excuse and say, okay, we'll try by all means to do that in X, Y, and Z. So I think that is a very important institution that we must continue to nurture and get the support of the public. But of course, we can only also get the support of the public if we are seen to be independent and credible. That is important. And that is why the government should always leave the NHRC to do its work, because the public must have confidence in an independent institution to be able to do its work. So, but I see the vision I have about this institution is to see it strengthen, to have more offices right across the country, that its recommendations are implemented. Gambians have confidence in the NHRC. It's important. Sure. 2 years just after 2.5 years when we were established, there was a poll that was done. And we were very happy, almost 78-9% of the population. And we were relatively new. When they asked them, which of these institutions, they said, we believe that the NHRC is an institution that is doing... That doesn't mean that we should just relax. We should always, because even the public sometimes will attack us. That's the nature of the job we do. Where are you? And sometimes politicians don't like what we do. Sometimes we get the support of everybody. But it shows we are doing our work. But just to tell you about our achievements, you did ask me, not only am I happy, or we are happy as with the rating that we've had, like I told you, within a short space, but our NHRI, this is a National Human Rights Institution, in our case it's called the Commission. We are, although we are national, but we are also affiliated to the Global Alliance of National Human Rights Commission based in Geneva, the GANRE, where the UN also sits in that committee, and also the Network of National Human Rights Commission. Within 3 years of our establishment and existence, we were given an A status. And that means it's not the government that gave it to us or anybody. Yes, that means that what they did was they have done an audit of the institution. Audit in what way? That are we in full compliance with what they call the UN Paris Principles? Every human rights institution all over the world are graded based on a set criteria in terms of its operation, in terms of, I told you about the directorates, how we are working, what we are working, the results. They went through all, even our composition. You see, we have young, dynamic ladies working for us. Everybody is here. Jola, Sarahule, Serir, everybody. Whether the people with disability, people of different religions, whether you are Muslim, Christian, or any branch, Ahmadiyya. So this is, even when we recruit, we go deep to make sure that it's, when we say it's a national human rights,
it reflects that.
And this should be in all our institutions. You cannot be saying this is a national institution when it doesn't reflect the country that we are in. And this institution, and we were granted A, and we are very happy, because usually it takes many years before national human rights institutions are given A. A lot of them have B, or they are not stateless. Senegal is B status. I'll keep on saying that for us to also understand. Yes. Usually good news doesn't come out from the Gambia. Yes. But we are very happy, and this is where I want us to remain as A. Just because you are A, they will keep on reviewing you. That will be A status, that we will be able to fulfill the mandate, that Gambians will have confidence, that the government will implement the recommendations, and the task that we have been given to bring back a culture of rule of law and human rights in this country, we will achieve that. A country where everybody, regardless of your religion or version of the religion that you believe in, or your tribe, your ethnicity, whether you are male or female, a country where everybody feels that they belong. You see, this is very important. The Gambia has been like that for many years. But of course, recently, you see the signs of a nation being polarized, whether using religion, saying very bad things about certain sects in religion. It doesn't augur well for a country. It doesn't. We're a small nation. We go out there fighting for the cause of the Rohingya. And then we allow people within our midst to sow seeds of division. We cannot. And the National Human Rights Commission, under my chairmanship, will make sure that everybody's right, regardless of the religion they belong to, a version of the religion they belong to, their tribe, or other status is respected, protected, and fulfilled. This is what we have been tasked with, and this is the trajectory that we have taken so far.
Any final advice for youngsters?
Yes. Well, the Gambia has a very youthful population, and it's very important that even politicians themselves, when they are addressing the nation, and their policies must be youth-friendly and youth-focused, because they will be the next generation. And this is very important in many respects. They must make sure we invest a lot in education. I've seen that we are doing that. But also the youngsters must understand the importance of taking advantage of education. Vocational training is and technical vocational training education. They all want to go abroad. If you go abroad and you're not trained, you'll be very useless. They will bring you back. Get your training. Use whatever facilities are available here. And also the issue of drugs. It's sad. You go around, I'm not making this thing up, you can see that there's a problem. I don't know whether the government is, we will, in the next 5 years, we'll need rehabilitation centers. With the advance of kush coming in and other drugs, there is a problem. So the youths in the schools, we need a concerted effort. And parents, all of us, NHRC, we should all be in it together to tell young people to desist from taking drugs. Focus on their education. Focus in getting skills. You must have the competence to be able to be very useful in your society, but also to stop. With social media now, when you scan the environment, a lot of youngsters are involved in hate speech. We should be very careful. And you see, where are they getting this hate from? So we should be, so opinion leaders, religious leaders should also be very careful. What you feed to the youth is very important. Soon they will take over from us. Some of us now are having gray hair. Nature will take care of us and will move over. But if you have a youthful population that is not united, that is not thinking Gambia, that is not thinking that, yes, we all have a space to be Sunni, Shiite, Ahmadiyya, Catholic, Protestant, or animist. It's your choice. Let us do things in knowing that we all have a stake in this country. And that is very important. And this was the Gambia that we knew. We have other, the Ahmadiyyas here brought in education. Clinics, hospital, medical. If you look at the church, they invested in education. And a lot of us are products of these institutions, whether we even belong to that particular faith or not. So, but we should stop opinion leaders, especially those who are have this divisive and grooming youngsters to hate others. Hate is bad. As Adam Ajeng of the UN advisor explained, he said that, he said hate starts with speech. Then he explained the killing of the Rohingya Muslim didn't start with just one day. You dehumanize them. Yes, by saying things. And as I sit here, sometimes we receive petition from different institutions and sects. Others are saying bad things about them. He said the Holocaust of the Jews then didn't start. It started with the Germans saying that these Jews were horrible people, they're not human. The genocide of the Tutsis started by others calling the Tutsis cockroaches. What do you do with cockroaches? You kill them. Yes, and this is what we've seen. And it is the duty of the state. And this is what I keep on saying. We have a job, we are a state institution. But the executive must protect, respect, and fulfill. And we should not encourage those. And we should be bold enough. We should not chicken out. If there is a vacuum, then they will seize that vacuum. We should never chicken out. When people are spreading hate, they should be addressed. Whether they are religious leaders, whether they are political leaders, or whatever. And this is what I have for the Gambia. If we are going to have a peaceful society, we must nurture peace.
Thank you, and we have come to the closure of the discussion. We are grateful to have you on the show to share your inspirational story for everyone to get inspired, even those that are hard to inspire. All right? Thank you. Until we come your way, this is Inspirational Africans on MTA International.
La for, hetefonem, anata, la for, hetefonem, for Islam stand for